G'day folks, welcome to this final report for Crossing the Line Aachen 1944. It's the end of turn 6 and the result here is a pretty convincing American victory. There's still 2 turns left in this campaign scenario, but I'm calling it here as an American victory, and I won't play out the final 2 turns simply because it's effectively mopping up these sort of isolated German positions. What's the Americans drew? I'll point out first of all, the Americans drew the Aachen plan objective chit, which means that they need to capture Aachen for 12 victory points, which they've done. They get 3 victory points for the other scattered objectives, 1, 2, 3, and they get 4 victory points for the Ruhr River, which they've just secured as well. They then get victory points for German strength point losses, and as you can see by the very few German units on the map, they have a lot of victory points for there. They have enough for victory already, with 2 turns remaining. It's very difficult to see the German lines here, simply because the Americans have broken through. You can see there's a bit of a German line here, which was holding. They were trying to defend Eschweiler here, and the 3rd Armoured Division broke through here, pushed into the city, a couple of consecutive actions here and captured that. German line here, so this is where the German line ran, broke through here, German line here, and then we had the 2nd Armoured Division break through across here. They captured Oldenhaven and swung around, again, consecutive actions, across this little stream here. Reconnaissance unit pushed to the Ruhr, and they fanned out from there. So yeah, German positions here, German positions here, German positions. This is the 116th Panzer Division up here. They had to pull back to kind of survive, really, and hold that northern edge of the Ruhr River around Jülich here. And then you've got all these sort of isolated, when I say isolated, these are isolated German positions up here, surrounded by the American 30th Infantry Division up in the north and the 1st Division. There's not much the Germans can do, basically. So I'll be doing a full review on this in another video, but I want to talk about how this happened. The Americans are on the offensive. They pick and choose where they want to attack. And particularly early on, before the 116th Panzer Division arrives, before other German reinforcements arrive, the Americans need to, I think, seize that initiative. And they need to attack. Playing this game, I think you need to forget everything you know about other games. It's... yes, there's these breakthroughs here. There's breakthrough here. There are breakthroughs everywhere, but they don't really matter so much. It's really, what's important is concentration of forces and bringing your key armor units, your high strength infantry, and your combat support into a position where they can get these devastating attacks on the German defenders. Because the Germans are so often in these improved positions. So when they're drawing a combat chit, they're usually drawing a good ×3 multiplier, which is really increasing their strength. So you need to bring everything you can to these combats. A lot of these, I used a lot of what they call prepared attacks to give me the best multiplier on these, to improve the American chances. Using armor where possible, just trying to avoid German armor. I was doing a lot of that. And yeah, just relentlessly attacking. And as soon as there's a weakness, as soon as there's a German unit out in the clear, the Americans were attacking because, yeah, clear terrain provides, a very favorable combat results table column. So attacking, choosing areas to attack, using the clear terrain, avoiding the forests and the industrial areas and the towns, all these kind of, avoiding this area. So they focus, the armoured divisions, focus on that clear terrain. And because they're on the attack, they choose where to attack. They've got higher movement rates, so they can maneuver from left to right, picking and choosing. Infantry basically just protecting their flanks and pushing out a little bit, taking, dealing with the remnants of those isolated German positions. So the flanks out here, and flanks out in the north, and letting the armoured divisions. The 3rd Armoured and the 2nd Armoured in particular drive and deal the damage to the Germans. Infantry doing a lot of damage as well out in the flank, but really drawing on, you can see here these high strength mechanised infantry formations out here doing the damage. What else? Germans, look, a failure on the Germans as well. They didn't defend. They can't just sit back and defend. The Germans have to be active here. They have to be reacting when it's opportune, and they have to be counterattacking. And I tried, but it, obviously didn't do it well enough. So I think I played the Americans better than I played the Germans in this campaign. I was focusing my reaction rolls on opportunities to nullify a big American activation. So when they had 7 activation points, the Americans were careful. They wouldn't put themselves in a position where the Germans could react. So that was a good American strategy. And whenever they did that, the Germans attempted a reaction to cancel that American activation, and the Americans would lose some action points. But that very rarely happened. What happened instead was, another American strategy was the Americans hunted down the German headquarters. And when they do this, when they move adjacent to these headquarters have to move, they lose strength points, they lose activation levels. And so the Germans, in these final 2 turns in particular, turns 5 and 6, that's the main advantage of breakthroughs. Because the rules of kind of being out of supply aren't that punitive. There are attrition rules, but it's hard to kind of get to that point. Instead, the biggest advantage of breaking through, I found, was finding these headquarters and disrupting German operations in effect. And that was critical. On these last 2 turns, hunting down the headquarters, pushing them away, disrupting the activation levels meant that on these last 2 turns, turns 5 and 6, the Germans were just starved of formation activations. They could not activate sufficiently. They've already got lower, it's just off the board to the right here, they've already got lower formation activation levels, which means that when they activate a formation anyway, they're getting fewer actions to spend. And when the Americans are hunting down these headquarters and reducing that activation level, they're getting even fewer. So, again, these last 2 turns, we had some German formations which barely activated, and they can't react. There's not much they can do then. Once they've been hunted and pushed away, and you've got formations that are isolated and out of command. And basically the Germans, the last 2 turns, when the Americans kind of figured out this strategy, the Germans really, really, really struggled with activating. They couldn't do much. They set up their defensive positions, and they just had to hold. A couple of times, the 116th Panzer in particular, there were a few counterattacks, and as I said, there's the attacker gets to pick and choose where they want. A couple of times the Americans got caught out in the open. 116th Panzer Division counterattacked with some success, but it's really just creating slowing them down very, very mildly, and what is otherwise this big American juggernaut rolling on. The Germans get some good reinforcements. On turn 6, they get this big 116th Panzer Division wave of reinforcements, which have now been sort of scattered all over the place. They've been split. The headquarters is over here, so these guys are out of command as well. But by that stage, they had just lost so much, of their other forces. As I said, much of your focus in this game is reducing the strength of the defenders. So the Americans on the attack, want to there's not really much of a need to force a retreat. What they really want to do, in fact, retreats are bad for the Americans. What the Americans want to do is cause strength point losses and eliminate these isolated German infantry formations. Because if they can do that, then there's a gap. Forcing retreat, yeah, not a good result. And it's a grind. It's hard to eliminate these formations. You have to attack relentlessly. And so often, these breakthroughs result from consecutive actions. I'll talk more about that in the review. Bottom line, in this campaign, I think, yeah, the Americans learnt their strategies and implemented them more effectively than what the Germans did. And thus we have this American victory, which is shaping up to be a decisive American victory, because they're going to spend the next 2 turns basically eliminating all these pocketed, isolated, out of command German units. And the Germans would be lucky basically to remain on the map, remain around Jülich and the Ruhr River. What else can I say about this campaign? Very few American casualties by comparison. So the Germans suffered horrifically. There is a huge pile of German dead units off to my left. Very few American strength losses. They did lose, I will point out, a lot of armor. So the third division, somewhere in here, they've lost a lot of armor. You can see down to 1 strength point. They've lost a lot of armor throughout their forces, but are still able to bring the right forces to bear to push the Germans back. So folks, that is my playthrough of Crossing the Line, Aachen 1944. Review to come, where I'll talk more about the game systems and pros and cons shortly. But thanks for watching. Really fascinating. I will point out very briefly, spoiler alert for the review, this is a monster game on a very small footprint. It's just taken me a long time to play this through this campaign. There's a lot of gaming here. There we go, folks. American effectively decisive victory over the Germans in this campaign of Crossing the Line. Thanks for watching and take care.